Alright, hi everybody. Hopefully everyone can see me okay. I have been having a little bit of a hard time with my Wi-Fi today, so just let me know if it ever pauses on the video or anything, or whatever problem you guys are having with seeing the video, let me know and I can try to fix it. Today we are going to be making a game which is kind of like Frogger. A lot of you know of the game as Crossy Road. That's another name for a really similar game. So we're going to talk about how to make a game like that. We're going to add in like a home screen for it, and then I'll give you a challenge at the end of class, just a project that you can try to challenge yourself going forward. So let me know if everything's working okay, and then let me know if you guys are all ready to go. I think that we should be just about ready to go. Make sure that you have another screen open to code naturally in advanced, and yeah, should be good to go. So to start this out, the first thing that we're going to discuss is there's two choices for this. So we're basically going to have on our screen, we're going to have cars kind of moving back and forth, and then we're going to need to have a character. And the character is going to move up, controlled by our arrow keys or our WASD keys, kind of depending on what you guys want to do. And then so we need to design like the cars, the roads, the background, all that kind of stuff, but we also need to choose our character. So I'm going to let you guys choose. You can choose to do an emoji for this if you want to, which is just a fun way to have a more detailed character on your screen without having to code it. Or you can do what I'm going to do and just use an ellipse. So I'm just going to do an ellipse, but like I said, it's up to you. So depending on what you choose, if you want to do a character that is an emoji, or a character that's just an ellipse or a rectangle, it's going to start pretty much the same. So we're going to go into function setup, and in function setup we're going to choose to either do rect mode center. That's non-negotiable, that one's going in there. So RECT capital MODE parentheses all caps center. And that's because we are going to be using distance, because we're going to talk about the distance between our car and our character to discuss how to make the game winnable or losable. So we have our rect mode center. Then if you decide that you want to do an emoji, you need to put in this line right here. Text, align, and then in parentheses, center. And the reason that putting text align center in there is important is because we want to make sure that we're telling the exact center of that emoji to the computer, so that when we're doing the distance, it'll be much easier for us to say, okay, the distance between the center and the distance between the center of the character. So center of the car and the center of the character. So those two lines, the first one is non-negotiable. That one's got to go in there because we're going to make our cars using rectangles. And then the text align center is if you want to use an emoji for your character. All right, so the next thing that we're going to do, we're actually going to start with a variable for this one. Don't need that much space. So I'm going to go right in between function setup and function draw, which is where we declare our variables. And the first thing you want to say when declaring a variable is var, so var. And we're going to give this a name. So we're going to use game screens for this. So I'm going to say var game screen, and we've used these before, but it's always good to practice these. They are really easy to use once you get a hang of them, but they can be a little tricky at first. But we're going to just make sure that we have our var game screen equal to, in quotation marks, home. And we're going to do that before we start doing any of our other code, so that we can start to look at the code inside of if game screen equals home as our setup for the project. So now I'm going to go down here, make a little space for function draw, And we're going to do, just like I just said, we're going to do the if, and then in a set of parentheses, game screen equals, 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 quotation marks, home. So if our game screen equals what we just told it to equal, then what do we want it to look like? So this is where you can have like a little bit of fun with it. Choose a cool color for your background. And this is just going to be for your home screen. It's not going to be necessarily the background color for your whole game that you make. So if game screen equals, equals, equals home, then I want to put my background in there. In this part, the design isn't really as important as everything else that we're going to be doing. So don't feel like you have to spend a ton of time on this. I'm just going to like put in a text size. I'm going to put in a text font. Yeah. You can change the color using fill. It's really up to you. And then I'm going to put in text that says Frogger, because it's the name of our game. And remember that this is in text align center, so I want to figure out where I want the center of this word to go. So I'm going to put it at like 250, 125. See how that looks. Okay, so I think it could be a little bit bigger. So I'm going to try making it 90 instead of 40. There we go. Alright, so basically all that I did was made my variable for home screen, went into function draw and said if our game screen equals, 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 it's really important that you put 3 equal signs in there, and then in quotation marks, home, and then I have my curly brackets, and so far inside of there, all that I've said is I want the background to be a certain color, I want the text to be a certain size, I want the text to be a certain font, and I want our text to display. So that's all I've done so far. Optional, additional things you could have so far are a text or just a fill to fill in the text a certain color. That's pretty much all we've gotten to so far. So you can also choose to leave out any of the things that I've done. You can leave your text the normal size. It just will be a little bit harder to read. And you can make the font just the normal font. Doesn't really matter. Okay, so now we're going to make a play button. I'm just going to make a nice big button that's centered right here. Remember, we're dealing with rect mode center, so keep that in mind. So I'm going to do RECT, and I'm going to put it at 250, 250, making it 200 wide and 100 tall. So anytime that you guys need help throughout the course of this video, just feel free to put it in the chat. We'll help you out as soon as we can. If you're watching this video later, or if you want to give maybe ideas for next week's video or anything like that, you can put it in the comments. All right, and then I'm going to do something that I do a lot. I'm going to round the edges on this rectangle. If you don't know how to do that yet, all you have to do is add an extra number onto the end of the list for your rectangle, basically. So you have your X location, your Y location, your height, or your width, sorry, your width, and then your height, and then the last number that you add on, if you choose to add one on, would be how curved do you want the edges to be. Okay. So the last thing that I'm going to do is add in another fill color. I chose to fill in my text black and my rectangle black, so I'm just going to choose to fill in the text white on the button. So I'm going to change that text size because it's going to be a little bit too big, I think. I'm going to make it like 70. And then I'm going to write play. Oops, I want to move it down a little bit. Okay, so if you are done with this so far and you're like, whoa, that was so much easier to make the text and to make the rectangle, you can always put rect mode center and text align center in there. You can always choose to do that. If you decide that it's just easier for you to think about using rect mode center. Okay, so the last thing that we want to do on this home page is we want to make sure that this is a clickable button. So I'm going to make a lot of space, and you want to make sure that everything that you've done so far is inside of the curly brackets of if game screen equals home. So I'm going to go right here and I'm going to pause the screen, and I'm going to say if in parentheses, yeah, that didn't work. Let's just comment this out for a second. So I'm going to say if, and then in parentheses, mouse X, and make sure you use a capital X, is greater than whatever the left side is. So the left side of this is 150. And I'm going to say and, two and signs. And mouse X is less than whatever the right side of the button is. So in this case, it is 350. Then I want to make some curly brackets. I'm just going to get rid of these comments right here. Then I'm going to say if mouse Y is greater than the top line, which in this case is 200, and mouse Y is less than the bottom line, which in this case is 300, and then I'm going to tell it what to do. So if mouse Y is greater than 200 and mouse Y is less than 300, then what do I want to happen? I also want to check if my mouse is pressed. So I don't want it to just be, okay, if you hover over this button, then you automatically play the game. I want you to have to click on it. So that's where if mouse is pressed is going to come into play. Okay. So if my mouse's X is between the left side and the right side, and the top and the bottom, and I click that mouse, what I want to happen is I want game screen to equal, and then in quotation marks, play. And that is all that we're going to have inside of that first big conditional. So I can close this up and make sure, okay, everything that I've written so far inside of function draw is inside of those two curly brackets, which is what I want so far. All right, so I'll leave that down so you guys can look at it if you need to. And if you're clicking on your button and you're like, well, nothing's happening yet, that's because we haven't told it what to do if game screen equals play. So a way that you can test this is go down outside of the curly brackets that you were dealing with before, but still inside of the curly brackets of function draw. And you can say, if in parentheses, game screen equals, quotation marks, play, then you could just put something random in like background 0. And that's a way that you can test, okay, I clicked on my button, the background's now white, it all is working. All right, so we have our home button built in, and we are good to go. So make sure that you have your button equaling in quotation marks play, and make sure that you have it written the exact same way down here. That's a really common problem that people run into, is that either their button isn't set to the right numbers or their inequality signs are wrong. So make sure it's always like the alligator is eating the bigger number. And then the other thing that people have problems with is that their game screen, they either name it incorrectly or they just refer to the name incorrectly later on. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so another thing that is going to get really annoying is that every time that we write a line in here, like if I were to write like fill 255, as soon as the computer registers that, it's going to change back to the home screen. That's because I've told it that the var game screen equals home. So if I go up here and just for while we're working on this, change it to play, then it'll automatically go to that black background. So that's kind of what we're looking for this. So you can choose to make your background any color you want. I think I'm gonna make mine green. Yeah, I'm gonna go for this green color. Okay. And I'm going to add in a couple of roads. So I'm going to do a fill that is just a gray color. I'm gonna do like 200, try that out. And then I'm also going to put in a couple of rectangles. So you can choose at this point, do you want to make a lot of roads? Do you want to make just a couple of bigger roads with like a lot of cars on them? I think what I'm going to do is have just 3 roads maybe. Yeah, I think I'm going to do 3 roads. So one here, and one here. Just so it's a little bit, I'm just going to make it more simple of a game, and then you guys can choose to add on to it as much as you want. Okay, so I want 1 rectangle. Oh, actually, caught myself. It's on rect mode center, so make sure that you're going from where you want the center of this rectangle to be. So I want mine at 250, 75. I want it to be 50 tall and 500 wide, I think. Oops, I did that. I've done that twice today. 500 wide and 50 tall. There we go, much better. And another thing that I just do not like is that there is an outline on the road. So I'm going to add in the no stroke command. All right, so there we go. I have 1 road in there, and I'm just going to do 2 more. You can choose if you want to make yours bigger or smaller or whatever, different color. It doesn't have to look like a real road. I'm just choosing to make mine look kind of realistic. All right, so I'm going to make another rectangle at 170 or 250, 175. Making that one 500 wide and 50 tall. And I'm sure you guys have heard me say this before, but I always make my screen a little bit smaller. You can do that by going down to the settings key and just changing the height and width. You can also like put it into dark mode, which is pretty cool. Maybe I'll do the rest of the video on dark mode just for fun. But yeah, you can change all your settings down there, and we're gonna go back down there a little bit later. Okay. So I'm going to put my 3rd rectangle in there at 250, 275, 500 wide, and 50 tall. All right, there we go. So I've got my 3 roads in there, and basically what I'm thinking so far is that I'll start my character down here, the cars will be going across here, and my character will have to make its way to the top to win, basically. Okay, so we're gonna add in a couple of other lines. So we're gonna make our car. So I'm gonna put in just a fill, a red car, and I'm gonna make it a rectangle centered here. Looks pretty good. A little too curved. There we go. Okay, so I've decided that that's what my cars are gonna look like. Does it look super like a car? Not really. It doesn't matter. So I could choose to have one that's like this size, and then I could have another one right below it that's like a little bit shorter maybe. You can choose to copy and paste these. I'm gonna just do 1 car per road. You guys can choose to do more than that. I think that that would be a good idea. So I'm gonna just make this one a different color. Maybe I'll make it like blue. I guess I could just do this. I'll make a red, a blue, and a purple. How about that? And I'm going to move it so that it's down here. So it's at like 450, 175. And then for this one, I'm going to make it shorter. So instead of 75 wide, I'm going to just make it 50 wide. So maybe it could be like a bus and a car. And this is a really good way to have a bunch of different cars on there, is to have a lot of different sizes. It'll make it a little bit harder and a little bit more fun, I think. So I'm going to label these actually. I'm going to put car 1, car 2, and then this is going to be car 3. Oops. So I'm going to do a fill to make it purple, and then I'm going to center it. Let's put it down here, 215, 275, and let's make it a little bit, I don't want to make it too much smaller. Let's try 25. Yeah, there we go. Maybe I'll add 2 onto that line, just to show you guys. Let's actually do it the same color. All right, so I'm gonna move that one to, let's put it just like a little bit behind, like right here. So 25. All right, there we go. So what I want to do is go up and make a few variables for these cars to be attached to, because I want them to move, of course. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do var, and I'm going to do, let's do car 1 equals 0, var car 2 equals 0, oops, var car 3 equals 0. Okay, so then I would just need to go down here. And the reason that I made 3 is because these 2 cars are going to be like pretty much the same, so it's not really worth it to make a whole other variable for it. But you'll see why I made different ones for each one in a little bit. So I'm going to add that to the x coordinate because I want it to move to the left or to the right. So I want it to move this way. I don't want it to move up and down. If I wanted it to move up and down, I would change the y, and I would add it to the y variable. So I'm going to add plus car 1 to this, plus car 2 to this, plus car 3 here, and plus car 3 here. Okay, so then what I'm going to do, so I went through that a little bit fast, so let's just go back, retrace our steps really quick. So I went up, I made 3 variables, one for car 1, one for car 2, one for car 3, and I attached the variables to each car. So I attached car 1 to the car I labeled as car 1, attached car 2 to car 2, and then attached car 3 to cars 3 and 4 because they're on the same line, and I'm going to have them going the same speed. All right, so then what I'm going to do, I'm going to move down a little bit, and I'm going to make it so that these cars are moving. And so I'm going to say car 1 equals car 1 plus, let's say 2. It's going to be a little slow, but you can make it a little faster. 3. That's good. Okay. Car 2 equals car 2. Let's make this one go to the left. So I'm going to do minus 2. And then car 3 equals car 3. Let's make it move to the right, so plus. Let's do 4. That can be too fast. No, that's fine. Okay, so the reason that I made 3 different variables is so that they could go 3 different speeds. There are ways that you could do this differently, but I think that this makes the most sense for what we're doing right now. So I made car 1 move to the right at a speed of 3, car 2 is moving to the left at a speed of 2, and then car 3, the 2 cars are moving to the right at a speed of 4. Obviously they run off the screen now, so we got to fix that. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to say if, in parentheses, car 1 is greater than, let's see, car 1 moves to the right, so if it's greater than 550, then what we want to happen is we want car 1 to equal negative What do I want it to be? Negative, let's do negative 100, that should work. There we go. So now it's looping around. And I'm going to do this exact same thing for cars 2 and 3. So I basically am just saying, okay, if my car goes off the screen, which we've done before, then I want it to come back, please. So I'm going to do this for car 3 because it's also going to the right, and I want it to do the exact same thing. But this one, yeah, it's going to have to go a little bit further back than negative 100 because there's 2 of them attached and it starts a little bit farther to the right. So I want to make sure that it still gets space. Let's make that just 220, just for good measure. Okay, so they both go off the screen and then they both come back. Okay, so now I just have to do this for car 2. So if car 2 is, in this case, we're going to do less than 550. Wait, no. If car 2 is less than, not 550. If car 2 is less than the far right side, which in this case I'm going to make negative 50 to start, then what I want to happen is I would want car 2 to equal 550. And let's see how that goes. Oops. Oh yeah, okay, so for car 2, I'm going to do car 2 plus 450 is less than negative 50. That's because the location that car 2 is at, and because it's moving to the left, it's just like a little bit more finicky about where it wants to come out, which is totally fine. All right, so 550 is a little bit too far. I think it's going a little bit too slow, so let's try making it 400. Even 400, it's taking a long time. Let's try 200. And these are just good to play around with, get them exactly the way you want them to be. If it's not really moving the speed you like or doing what you want, change it. It's really easy to modify these games. All right, so we have our cars and they're moving across the screen and they're doing what they're supposed to do. And at this point, you could choose to have extra cars added on there. You could choose to have it going a lot faster, going a lot slower. Doesn't really matter, just try to modify it in a way that you like the gameplay. And I'm going to modify it right now. I'm going to make car 2 go a little bit faster, I think. Cool. Yeah, and I think I'm going to make them all go a little bit faster once it's actually like game time, but that's okay. So far we are good to go. We have our cars moving. They're doing everything that they're supposed to do. Remember that you can always pause this video. You can rewind it. We have a ton of other tutorial videos that you can watch on our channel. If you feel like you need to practice doing one thing in particular, you can always go and watch those. Make sure that you subscribe to our channel so that you can know when we post new videos. You can also always request videos. We're always looking for people to request videos, and we're more than happy to make those for you. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is let's design our character. So for our character, we just want it to be able to move up or down. So I'm just going to make a character Y variable and make that 0. Or actually, I guess I can just make it the starting Y. Let's start it at 320. All right, so now we're gonna go down, and like I said, you can choose to do an emoji for this, and I'll show you how to do an emoji for it. It's super easy. All you have to do is put text and then a set of quotation marks. You would put your emoji right in between those quotation marks, and then just put your X and Y coordinates like you normally would. So it's going to be like 250 comma character X or character Y. gonna just leave that. I'm gonna say if using an emoji, but I'm going to use an ellipse. So I'm gonna put my ellipse at 250, comma, character Y, and I'm going to make it, let's try 50 by 50 to start. Yeah, it's a little bit too big. 30, because I don't want it to be so small that it's really easy to go through this, and I don't want it to be so big that it's impossible to stay out of the road. So I think this is a good size. I'm also going to add in a fill. I'm going to make it the same color that we made our earlier background. You can make it any color you want though. All right. There we go. So there's my little character, and basically what we need to do next is make it so that my character can move up and down using arrow keys. So to do that, we are going to say if, in parentheses, key is down, so key, capital I is, capital D down, then we want to make a set of parentheses, and this is where we're going to go back to our settings, and we want to show our key picker. We also have an emoji picker that you guys can use. So if you click on here, then you can see like all the different emojis that we have available that you can just copy and paste right from here. Super, super easy to use. You can just, if you click on a certain emoji, then you can copy it right here, and it'll just copy to your clipboard. So what I'm going to use right now is the key picker. So I'm going to click on this key picker, and I'm going to choose to move up and down using, let's use W and S. So I'm going to start with up, so I'm going to choose W, and I'm going to say 87 right in here. And I always like to leave a comment right above where I do a key command so that I know where I have that code, which is basically the only reason that you ever use comments unless you're leaving a note for yourself. But it's just good to know, okay, my up arrow actually isn't working, and then you can immediately go over, say, where is that word up, and it's much easier to find than looking at 6 different key codes and being like, well, which one moves up? So that is one thing that I think is really beneficial. So what we're going to do now is make it so it can move up. So basically what I want to do is I want to take my character Y, and it's going to equal character Y, and this is where you have to make a decision. So it's moving up, so the numbers are getting smaller, so you want to do minus, and then you can choose how fast you want your character to be able to go. So I'm going to have mine do 4. So I think that's pretty good. And you'll notice that it doesn't move down yet because we need to do that. Copying and pasting is a really good option when you're doing key commands or really anything. So you practice using those. Also make sure that everything you're doing is still inside of that curly bracket. Really important. Okay, so to move down, I wanted to use the key S, and S is 83. And instead of doing -4, I'm going to do +4. Okay, and so one thing that I notice is my character doesn't really get run over by the cars. It is on top of the cars, and that's because I did the code for it after I did the code for my cars. So what I can just do is I can cut this out and move it to the top before I did any of my cars. And that's just like a style choice. It's not necessary by any means. It'll just make the gameplay a little bit different. Oh, and I took the fill away from my road. Oh, I accidentally put it above the road, that's why. So I don't want it above the road, I just want it above the cars. There we go, and I made it easy for myself by writing car 1 and car 2 and car 3. There we go. Okay, all is right in the world. So now if I move up, it looks like the car's actually running me over versus me walking over it. So from noticing this, I'm noticing that, all right, if I did it as +4, this game would be so easy. So I'm going to change it, and I'm going to make these key commands instead of +4, I'm going to make it +2. Because I feel like that's going to be a little bit more tricky. Yeah, you can't just hold down the key and make it past it now. Okay, so another thing that I want to do is there's a lot of different ways that we can do this, but I'm basically going to make it so that if you reach the top, you go back to the start and you get a point. But let's first make it so that if you get hit by the cars, you lose. So we're going to say if the distance between my car 1, so 50 plus car 1, and then comma 75, and my character, which is 250, comma character Y. So if that is less than, let's start with 10, try that out. Then what I want to happen is I want game screen to equal you lose. And I'll just make a game screen for that later. Okay, so all that you have to do for distance is say if, and then in a set of parentheses, dist, so D-I-S-T, and that'll call in the distance function that the computer already knows how to use. And then you're going to just put in parentheses x comma y comma x comma y. So the 0.1 and the 0.2 that you want to check the distance between. Right after those parentheses close out, you want to put it's less than or greater than a certain amount. 10 is going to be this one. Then I want the game screen equal you lose. So I'm just going to copy this and I'm going to use it for each one of my 4 cars. So there's car 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I'm going to add in some comments just so that I can remember. All right, so it looks good. All right, so that's character 1, or car 1, sorry. So I'm going to go up, find car 2, and I'm going to say, all right, the top, or the center point is 450 plus car 2, comma 175. So I want to change this right here. All right. And everything else is perfect. So I want to go back up. Let's find our coordinate for car 3. And do the exact same thing. And this one in particular, copying and pasting is going to save you a lot of time. So just practice copying and pasting. That is going to be your best bet. Oops, past car 4. All right, so remember that you can always pause the video and rewind it if you need to. I know I'm doing this a little bit fast, but I'm sure that you can catch up. And let us know if you need any help or if you have any questions or comments or if you know, whatever your recommendations are or whatever you need from us or want from us. Okay, so I did all of those, and the only way to test if they're actually working is to go down, and I think the easiest way to do this, once you've written so much code, is to go up here and just close it out. So I'm going to just close it out, and I'm going to say, all right, here's what I want to do. If game screen equals equals equals, quotation marks, you lose, curly brackets, then what do I want to happen? I want, let's just make background 0 again. That's like my go-to. And now I can test it out. I can say, okay, I'm going to check the distance between me and the cars. And it seems like 10 is a little bit too small. It's kind of allowing them to still get pretty far before I die. So I'm going to change that to, let's try 20. And each one of these is going to be like a slightly different distance, which you'll notice as you're refining it and playing it more. So that one worked out pretty well. So I'm going to just change this screen up here since I know that it's working and I know that the you lose button is, or the you lose screen is working the way it's supposed to. I'm going to just change this to you lose. And I'm going to just add in some text. And I'm going to add in a text font and a text size. And these are all optional steps. All right, there we go. I'm going to move it up a little bit higher, but for the most part, I think it looks pretty good. Cool. And so another thing that you could add on to this one is a button that would just take you back to either the play screen or the home screen. You just want to make sure if you make a score or something like that, that you reset where the score is and you reset your character's Y value. The cars you don't have to worry as much about, but the character's Y value you do. Okay, so I'm going to close that out because that's all I'm going to put on there for now. And I'm going to say, all right, I'm going to go back to this area. And sometimes when you're writing a lot of code for a game like this, it can get kind of messy. That's why we have the pretty button. It's easier for us to help you if you put it into pretty mode, and it's easier for you to sometimes see, like there's these faint little gray lines that line up between the if statement and the curly bracket. Those are super helpful. So yeah, it's just a little bit easier to see everything in one place. So I'm going to close all these up. I'm actually just going to open the play button, or the play condition, basically. And, okay, so right now I have it so that, oh, gotta change it so that it goes to the play screen. There we go. Okay, so now my character can move. It can, in fact, die. But one thing that I cannot do yet is I cannot get a point when I get up to the top or anything like that. So basically what I'm going to have happen is I'm going to have this kind of teleport me. So I'm going to say that if my character Y, so if my character's Y value is less than or equal to, let's make it 20, I think. Then I want my character Y to restart from wherever it normally should be. So in this case, it's 320. So let's see if that works. So I'm going to try to make it to the top. Did not want to work. So this is where you want to verify, like, all right, did I actually put my character just at character Y, or did I add or subtract something? And it's good. Oh, it's because I spelled something wrong. So another thing to keep in mind, sometimes when you spell something really close to right but not exactly right, the computer will kind of trick you and say that it's okay when it's really not. So look out for that. Still not working. try making that 50. And another thing that you can do if you notice like, oh, my character isn't, there we go, so now it's working. My character isn't moving like I wanted to, or, you know, whatever it is that you're having a problem with, it's always good to double check. All right, do I have the right amount of equal signs? Do I have everything spelled right? Do I have the right numbers in there? Did I add anything into my character? So check those things before you get frustrated. It can be really easy when you're doing a project like this to get really frustrated and get disappointed that you did something wrong, but you can look at it as a learning experience. So this time I spelled something wrong and the number was just a little too small for some reason. So I just went back, I checked all my bases, and those are all things I've learned from doing previous projects, and I learned, okay, I figured it out, it's all good, and it almost feels better after you can fix something that's not going right. So now my character is coming back, and I think the last thing I'm going to do is add in a score. So let's do that together. So anytime you want something to be able to change, you have to make a variable for it, just the way it is. Maybe I'll make it called like laps, since this isn't really, you're not really getting a point, you're just like completing a lap. So I'm going to name it laps, set it equal to 0. I'm going to scroll down this way, and I'm going to say that I want my laps to be displayed. So I'm going to put it in the top left corner, like right here. See how that looks. Yeah, it looks pretty good. So let's make the text size a little bit bigger. Okay, and then I'm going to put, like, right in front of it, I'm going to put laps completed. And then if you do that, you just want to put plus laps in front of it, or right after it, sorry. I'm going to change the size to be a little bit smaller. Let's do like 25 instead of 30. And then I'm going to move it a little bit to the right. I also want to do this. Okay, and let's move this over to the right. Let's do like 145. 125. There we go. That looks good. All right, so now if I make it to the top, it should add another one, but it won't because I haven't added that in yet. So I said I wanted character Y to reset if my character Y is less than or equal to 40. But in this case, I don't just want it to reset. I also want it to add laps equals laps plus 1. Oops. All right, so now if I make it to the top, it added 1. And then I have my better luck next time. So here's a few tips and tricks for you as you're doing this. Really pay attention to where your curly brackets are. It's easy if you have it either in pretty mode or you just pay really good attention to where everything is spaced out. You can use, there's like these really faint gray lines. I doubt you guys can even see them on my screen, but you can probably see them on your own. These really faint gray lines that go between the if and the closing curly bracket. The computer is also pretty good about telling you if you have too many or too few, but you just want to pay attention mostly to where they are. So that's where these little side clickers come in handy. If you notice, like, okay, when I'm pressing my arrow key, that's the only time the car is moving and the only time that the character's moving, then you probably just have two if statements kind of nested together in a way that they shouldn't be. So you can use these little side arrows, close everything up, make sure everything's good. You want to do the same thing when you're doing the game screens. You saw me do that earlier. And then other things that you could do, you could make, so your challenge is going to be to kind of improve on this game. So I'm going to actually take it to home. So you can see I have my home screen, I have my play button. Another thing that we always like to add on is a how-to button. So let's say, in my case, I chose to use the W and S keys to move up and down. a lot of people wouldn't automatically think that. So I could have a little help button, whether it be right next to the play button or down below or wherever you want to put it. And on there I could say, to play this game, you're going to move your character up and down using the W and S keys. The goal is to not be hit by the cars. Good luck. Something like that. Other things that you could do, you can make the speed of the cars variables. And if you make them a variable, then you can change them. So that way, maybe if you complete one lap, the cars get faster. Or you could make it so that your character gets bigger, so it's harder to do. You could make it so that you have to collect things along the way. So I've seen versions of this game where you can move left and right, and basically what you do is you move up, and once you get to this, there's a little coin that you have to pick up. So you could have something for laps completed and another for coins collected. We'll do a whole episode on how to add a store into a game. I've had a lot of questions about that, so we can do that next time. If you guys think that that's something that you would want to do, let us know in the comments. Otherwise, if you have other requests of things that you think would be more fun to do, let us know. I'm trying to think of what else. Let's see. Yeah, so your challenge, oh, another thing you can do. So I've seen other versions of this game where you like start from the left and then move to the right. That would be a little bit of an easier way to make more roads on this version of the game. Since the screen is a rectangle, you could have more roads going that way. You could also have it so it's not even roads, it's just like characters that bounce back and forth. You could make it just like different color, like balls bouncing around the screen. Maybe like they bounce around just inside of the rectangle of the road. That would be a cool one because then it's kind of unpredictable. This one's a little bit more predictable. You could make it so that every time that the car finishes a lap, it gains speed. That would be really hard. But your challenge after this class is to use what you learned today and change it into a unique project. So it could be similar to mine, but you have like twice as many roads. Or it could be similar, but you collect coins, or you, instead of getting hit by the cars, you get carried away by the cars, or anything that you can think of that would be a fun, unique twist on a game like this. So I really want you guys to share your projects with us. Go ahead and go down into the description of the video, and there is a link to share your projects. If anyone shares their projects in the next couple of minutes, I will share them with you guys. Otherwise, you are free to go if you feel like you mastered everything in this project. It's not a super easy project, it's not a super hard project, it's kind of right in the middle. Let me know if you thought it was way too easy for you or way too hard for you. Or if something isn't working, let us know too, and we can totally try to help you. But yeah, submit your projects. We'll share them with your parents. We'll share them. We do an email every week to parents, so we've been sending some student projects in there, which is super fun. So keep your eye out for that and complete the challenge and let us know how you did. Comment below if you're having problems or if you had a really cool idea for your challenge and you want to let us know. That would be awesome. Otherwise, I think we are good to go. We're going to sign out for today. Thank you guys for joining us. This was super fun. I really like doing this project and I hope you did too.